The metal door of the community center slammed behind Tessa Morgan with such force that the sound echoed down the empty street like a judge's gavel. Final. Absolute. Unforgiving. She stood on the concrete steps, her breath forming small clouds in the bitter January air, staring at the building where she'd spent 3 years of her life. 3 years of arriving early and leaving late. 3 years of organizing food drives, helping families in crisis, and believing that kindness mattered. 3 years that had just been erased in a single afternoon. The lock clicked from inside. Through the frosted glass window, she could see her cousin Bradley's silhouette moving away, not looking back. Tessa's hands shook as she pulled her thin green jacket tighter around her body. It wasn't enough for the weather. The temperature had dropped to 18 degrees, and the forecast promised it would fall even lower tonight. But her winter coat was inside the center, hanging in the office that was no longer hers. Along with her personal supplies. The groceries she'd stored in the break room. The blankets she kept for emergencies. Everything. "You've been stealing from us," Bradley had said, his face hard as stone. His wife Jennifer stood beside him, arms crossed, nodding with each accusation. "We trusted you, Tessa. We gave you a job when nobody else would. And this is how you repay us? Taking money from the donation fund." The words had struck her like physical blows. "I never took anything. Bradley, you know me. You've known me since we were children." "The numbers don't lie," Jennifer said coldly. $3,000 missing. And you're the only one with access to the account. "That's not true. You both have access. Let me see the records. Let me help figure out where the mistake is." But there was no mistake. Tessa understood that now, standing in the freezing cold. There was no missing money. There was only Bradley's gambling debts that he thought nobody knew about. There was only the community center struggling to stay open. There were only 2 people who needed someone to blame, and a convenient target who trusted too easily. They'd taken everything. Not just her job and her reputation. They'd taken the food she'd purchased with her own money, the small savings she kept in her desk drawer for emergencies, even her phone charger. When she'd protested, Bradley had threatened to call the police, to press charges for theft. Jennifer had already started making phone calls, Tessa knew. By tomorrow, everyone in their small network of community organizations would hear that Tessa Morgan was a thief. Her stomach growled painfully. She'd skipped lunch to help set up for the after-school program. Now that program would go on without her, and she had no idea where her next meal would come from. Tessa descended the steps slowly, each one taking her further from the life she'd known. The street was quiet. Most people were inside, sheltered from the cold. Smart people. People with homes and families and warm dinners waiting. She'd been living in a small room above the center, paying Bradley minimal rent from her equally minimal salary. That room was no longer available. She had nowhere to go. The wind picked up, cutting through her jacket like it wasn't even there. Tessa started walking, her worn sneakers barely providing protection from the frozen sidewalk. She passed houses with golden light glowing in the windows. Through one window, she saw a family gathered around a dinner table. A mother was serving food while 2 children laughed at something their father said. The scene hurt to watch. 6 months ago, Tessa had helped that same family when they were facing eviction. She'd connected them with emergency assistance, had personally delivered groceries when their funds ran out before the month ended. The mother had cried and hugged her, promising she'd never forget Tessa's kindness. Tessa kept walking. She couldn't knock on that door. She couldn't knock on any door. Bradley's lies would have already started spreading through their tight community. Nobody would believe her side of the story. She had no proof of her innocence, and he had the position of authority. The public library was still open. Tessa went inside, grateful for the blast of warm air that greeted her. She found a chair in the back corner and sat down, trying to make herself invisible. Her mind raced, trying to form a plan. She had exactly $12 in her pocket. That was everything she owned in the world. She could buy a little food. Maybe find somewhere to sleep that wasn't completely exposed to the elements. Tomorrow she could start looking for work, though without references and with Bradley's accusations following her, that seemed nearly impossible. The library closed at 8. A security guard politely but firmly asked everyone to leave. Tessa stepped back into the night, and the cold hit her like a wall. The temperature had dropped further. Weather reports on the TV screen she'd glimpsed in the library warned of dangerous conditions. Frostbite could set in within minutes. She walked to a gas station and bought a cup of hot coffee and a small sandwich for $5. She made the coffee last as long as possible, wrapping her frozen hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. But eventually that ended too. The night stretched ahead of her, vast and threatening. Tessa walked the streets searching for any kind of shelter. She found a covered bus stop and huddled in the corner, trying to shield herself from the wind. But the cold seeped through every layer into her bones, making her teeth chatter uncontrollably. Other homeless people passed by, their eyes hollow, their movements those of people who'd learned to survive in conditions that should have killed them. Tessa watched them with new understanding. She'd helped people experiencing homelessness through her work at the center. She'd never imagined she'd become one of them. Around midnight, a police car pulled up to the bus stop. The officer rolled down his window. "You can't stay here, miss. Move along." "Where should I go?" Tessa asked, her voice barely working through her shivering. The officer's face softened slightly, but his answer didn't change. "There's a shelter on Oak Street. They might have space." He drove away before Tessa could explain that she'd already tried the shelter. It was full with a waiting list weeks long. Budget cuts had reduced their capacity by half. Tessa kept moving because stopping meant freezing. Her feet had gone numb hours ago. Her fingers barely functioned. She found herself thinking strange thoughts, her mind growing foggy. She thought about her mother, who died when Tessa was 20. Her mother had always believed in helping others, in being kind even when it hurt. "That's what makes us human," she used to say. "Is this what kindness earned? This slow freezing death in the streets?" No. Tessa shook her head, trying to clear the bitter thoughts. She couldn't let this destroy who she was. Bradley's betrayal didn't change what was right. It just hurt more than she'd ever imagined betrayal could hurt. Dawn came eventually, gray and cold and offering no comfort. Tessa found a coffee shop that was opening early and spent another $3 on tea and a muffin. The warmth of the shop was almost painful after the bitter night. She stayed as long as she dared, until the morning rush started and the manager began giving her meaningful looks. Back on the streets, Tessa tried to think practically. She needed help. She swallowed her pride and went to the home of Rachel Torres, a woman she'd worked with on several community projects. Rachel had always seemed kind, always had a smile and words of encouragement. Rachel answered the door in a purple robe, her face surprised. "Tessa? What are you doing here so early? You look terrible." "I need help," Tessa said simply. "Bradley fired me. He's lying about me stealing money. I have nowhere to stay and no food. I just need a place to get warm and maybe a little time to figure out what to do next." Rachel's expression shifted from surprise to something colder. "I heard about what happened. Bradley called last night. Tessa, I never would have thought you'd do something like that. Those were funds meant to help people. I didn't steal anything. Please, Rachel. You know me. Have I ever done anything dishonest?" "People can surprise you," Rachel said, already closing the door. "I'm sorry, but I can't help someone who steals from charity. I have my own reputation to think about." The door shut. Tessa stood on the porch, stunned by how quickly compassion could vanish. She tried 2 more friends. 2 more doors closed. By afternoon, she understood that Bradley's campaign against her had been thorough. He'd called everyone she knew, painting her as a criminal and himself as the victim. The second night was worse than the first. Tessa's body was already weakened from cold and hunger. She found a spot behind a closed restaurant where the building blocked some of the wind. She huddled against the brick wall, trying to stay conscious, trying to stay warm. Her thoughts drifted. She remembered organizing the holiday food drive, seeing the joy on families' faces when they received help. She remembered the teenage boy she tutored who'd just gotten accepted to college. She remembered all the small moments of connection and hope that had made her work meaningful. Had any of it mattered? When she needed help, those same people turned away. No, that wasn't fair. They didn't know the truth. Bradley had made sure of that. The third day, Tessa could barely walk. Her body was shutting down from exposure and hunger. She'd spent her last few dollars on food, but it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough against the relentless cold. She made her way to a small park, her vision starting to blur at the edges. There was a bench under a streetlight. She sank onto it, her body grateful to stop moving. The park was empty. Everyone sensible was inside, protected from the bitter winter night. Tessa's breathing came in shallow gasps. Her hands and feet had no feeling left. She knew these were bad signs, that her body was giving up its fight against the cold. She thought about her mother again. About kindness and hope and all the things she'd believed in. Maybe believing wasn't enough. Maybe the world was harder than her mother had understood. The streetlight above flickered. Tessa's eyes closed. She couldn't keep them open anymore. The cold felt almost warm now, almost comfortable. Some distant part of her mind recognized this as dangerous, but she was too tired to care. She didn't hear the footsteps approaching. Didn't see the man who stopped in front of the bench, his eyes widening in alarm at the sight of her. Didn't know that everything was about to change. Tessa's last conscious thought was a simple one. She tried to be good. She tried to help people. And it had led her here, alone in the frozen dark, forgotten by everyone. She was wrong about being forgotten. But she wouldn't know that until she woke up. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Have you ever wondered if kindness is worth the cost? Tessa's story is just beginning, and what happens next will surprise you. Drop a comment with your thoughts and please subscribe to see how this story unfolds. Sometimes the darkest moments lead to the most beautiful beginnings. Consciousness returned slowly, like swimming up through dark water. Tessa became aware of sounds first. A steady beeping. Quiet voices. The rustle of fabric. Then sensations. Warmth. She was warm. After 3 days of brutal cold, the feeling was so unfamiliar it seemed strange. Her eyes opened to bright lights. White ceiling. The antiseptic smell of a hospital. She's waking up, a woman's voice said. Tessa turned her head slightly. A nurse in blue scrubs stood beside the bed, checking a monitor. Beyond her, a man sat in a chair near the window. He had dark hair touched with gray at the temples, wore an expensive-looking gray suit, and was watching Tessa with an expression of concern that seemed genuine. "Where am I?" Tessa's voice came out as a whisper, her throat raw. "Providence General Hospital," the nurse said gently. "You were brought in last night suffering from hypothermia and dehydration. You're lucky. Another hour out there and we'd be having a very different conversation." "I don't have insurance," Tessa said, reality crashing back. She tried to sit up, panic flooding through her. "I can't pay for this." "Please don't worry about that right now," the man in the chair spoke for the first time. His voice was deep, calm. "I'm Adrian Lancaster. I found you in the park last night. Everything's been taken care of." Tessa stared at him. "I don't understand." "I was taking a walk, clearing my head," Adrian explained, leaning forward slightly. "I saw you on the bench. You weren't moving. I called for an ambulance and came with you to make sure you were okay." "Why would you do that?" The question seemed to surprise him. "Because you needed help. That's reason enough, isn't it?" The nurse checked Tessa's vital signs, asked her some questions, then left with a promise that the doctor would be in soon. That left Tessa alone with this stranger who'd apparently saved her life. "Thank you," Tessa said, not knowing what else to say. The words felt inadequate. "You're welcome. Can I ask what happened to you? How did you end up out there?" Tessa hesitated, then found herself telling the whole story. Maybe it was the lingering effects of hypothermia. Maybe it was simple exhaustion. Maybe it was just that this man had already helped her when he had no reason to, and his face showed he was actually listening. She told him about Bradley, about the lies and the theft of her belongings, about the doors that had closed in her face. Adrian's expression darkened as she spoke. "Your own family did this to you?" "Cousin," Tessa clarified. "We weren't close growing up, but I thought we'd become friends while working together. I guess I was wrong." "What will you do now?" The question hung in the air. Tessa had no answer. She had no home, no job, no references, no money, and a reputation destroyed by lies. The hospital would discharge her eventually, and then she'd be right back in the cold. "I don't know," she admitted. "I'll figure something out. I always have." Adrian was quiet for a moment, studying her face. "I have a proposition for you. Please hear me out before you respond." Tessa nodded, wary but curious. "I live alone in a large house. Too large for one person, really. My housekeeper, Mrs. Brennan, has been saying for years that I need more help with the property. You need a place to stay and time to recover and get back on your feet. Stay at my house as a guest until you're fully recovered. After that, if you want, we can discuss a more permanent arrangement. Mrs. Brennan could use an assistant." "I can't accept that," Tessa said automatically. "You don't even know me. I know you were willing to freeze to death rather than steal or hurt anyone else. I know you worked at a community center helping people. I know you've been treated terribly and are still polite and grateful. That's enough for me. Why would you help me? You don't owe me anything." Adrian stood and walked to the window, looking out at the gray winter sky. "Let's just say I understand what it's like to be alone. And I have the resources to help, so why wouldn't I? You'd be doing me a favor, really? That house is far too quiet." Tessa wanted to refuse. Pride told her to say no, to find her own way. But practical reality was impossible to ignore. She had no other options. And there was something in Adrian's manner, a sincerity in his voice, that made her believe he genuinely wanted to help. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you. I accept." The relief on Adrian's face was immediate. Good. The doctor said you'll need to stay here for another day or two for observation. I'll make sure everything's ready for you at home. I'll work, Tessa insisted. I'll earn my keep. I'm not looking for charity. We'll figure out the details later. For now, just focus on getting well. Adrian picked up his coat from the back of the chair. I have some business to attend to, but I'll check on you this evening. If you need anything at all, tell the nurses. They know how to reach me. After he left, Tessa lay back against the pillows, her mind spinning. In the span of a few hours, she'd gone from dying in a frozen park to lying in a warm hospital bed with a future that might not be completely bleak. It felt surreal. Dr. Patricia Hughes came in later that afternoon, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficient movements. She examined Tessa thoroughly. You're incredibly lucky, Dr. Hughes said. Your core temperature was dangerously low when you arrived. You have some frostbite on your fingers and toes, but it's not severe. With proper care you should recover fully. But you need to understand how close you came. Your body was shutting down. I understand, Tessa said. Mr. Lancaster has arranged for private care. He also left instructions that you're to have whatever you need. You have a generous friend there. I just met him last night. Dr. Hughes's eyebrows rose. Really? Well, he's been quite concerned. He's called 3 times today checking on your condition. That's unusual for someone he just met. Tessa didn't know what to make of that. She'd spent the last 3 days learning that people she'd known for years could turn their backs without hesitation. Now a complete stranger was showing more care than her own family. The rest of the day passed in a blur of medical tests and treatments. Nurses brought her food, the first real meal she'd eaten in days. She devoured it, her body desperate for nourishment. They gave her warm blankets, checked her temperature regularly, made sure she was comfortable. Adrian returned that evening as promised. He brought a bag with some basic clothes in Tessa's size. Mrs. Brennan picked these up, he explained. I wasn't sure what you'd need, so she got a variety. If anything doesn't fit, just let her know and she'll exchange them. Tessa looked through the bag. Everything was good quality but practical. A warm red sweater, comfortable pants, thick socks, sturdy shoes. Everything she needed. This is too much, she protested. It's necessary, Adrian corrected. You can't leave the hospital in what you came in with. Those clothes are being disposed of. They were beyond saving. He sat in the chair by the window again. For a while they talked. Adrian asked about her work at the community center, seeming genuinely interested in the program she'd helped create. Tessa found herself relaxing, forgetting for moments the disaster her life had become. What do you do? She asked him. You said you had business to attend to. I run a technology company, Adrian said. We develop software for businesses. It's not particularly exciting to explain. You must be good at it if you can afford to help people you just met. A shadow crossed his face. I'm good at making money. I'm less good at everything else that matters. But that's a conversation for another time. You need to rest. He left after making sure she had everything she needed. Tessa settled into the hospital bed, more comfortable than she'd been in days, but her mind wouldn't quiet. She kept thinking about Adrian's words. I understand what it's like to be alone. What loneliness could a wealthy businessman possibly know? He had resources, options, security. But then she'd learned in the last few days that comfort and connection weren't the same thing. Maybe money couldn't buy the second one. The second day in the hospital passed similarly. Adrian visited twice, once in the morning and again in the evening. Each time he brought small things. A book he thought she might enjoy. A magazine. A card from Mrs. Brennan welcoming her and saying she was looking forward to meeting her. You don't have to keep coming, Tessa said during his evening visit. I know you must be busy. I am busy, Adrian agreed. But this is important too. Besides, I don't have anywhere else to be. No family waiting at home. No friends expecting me. Work can wait. There was again. That hint of deep loneliness beneath the polished exterior. Why don't you have friends? Tessa asked, then immediately regretted the bluntness. I'm sorry. That was rude. No, it's honest. I appreciate honesty. Adrian leaned back in his chair. I spent the last 15 years building my company. That was all I focused on. Relationships require time and attention, and I gave all of mine to work. By the time I looked up and realized what I'd sacrificed, everyone was gone. I'd chosen success over connection, and now I have one but not the other. You could change that, Tessa said. It's not too late to make new connections. Maybe. I'm not very good at it. I'm better with computers than people. You're doing okay with me. Adrian smiled and it transformed his face. You're easy to talk to. And you're not impressed by money or status, which is refreshing. Most people I meet want something from me. You just want to get well and move forward with your life. Dr. Hughes cleared Tessa for discharge the next morning. Adrian arrived with Mrs. Brennan, a short, round woman in her 60s with white hair and a warm smile. She hugged Tessa immediately. "Oh, you poor dear," Mrs. Brennan said. "Don't you worry about a thing. We'll get you sorted out. Adrian's house has plenty of room, and it'll be nice to have another soul around. That boy works too much and doesn't take proper care of himself." "I'm 40 years old, Mrs. Brennan," Adrian said, but there was affection in his voice. "And you still don't eat right or rest enough. Come on then, let's get this young lady home." The ride to Adrian's house took 20 minutes. They drove through increasingly upscale neighborhoods until they reached a gated community. Adrian's house was set back from the road, a beautiful two-story home with gray stone and large windows. It looked like something from a magazine. Tessa felt a surge of nervousness. This wasn't her world. She didn't belong in places like this. As if reading her thoughts, Adrian said, "It's just a house. Don't let it intimidate you. Come on, I'll show you around." Inside was just as impressive. High ceilings, hardwood floors, tasteful furniture. But something about it felt empty despite all the beauty. There were no personal photos. No small cluttered spaces that showed someone actually lived there. It was more like a hotel than a home. "Your room is this way," Mrs. Brennan said, leading Tessa upstairs. She opened a door to a large bedroom decorated in soft blues and whites. A comfortable bed dominated the space. Windows looked out over a garden. "This is beautiful," Tessa said. "It's yours for as long as you need it," Adrian said from the doorway. "There's a private bathroom through that door. Mrs. Brennan stocked it with everything you should need. If we missed anything, just let us know." "I don't know how to thank you," Tessa said, her voice thick with emotion. "You already did by accepting the help," Adrian replied. "Now rest. Recover. We'll talk about everything else later." He left her alone to settle in. Tessa sat on the edge of the bed, running her hand over the soft blue comforter. A week ago she'd had a job and a place to live and a belief that good things happen to good people. She'd lost all of that. But now, in this unlikely place, she had a chance to start over. She wouldn't waste it. The first morning in Adrian's house, Tessa woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then memory flooded back and she sat up, taking in the beautiful room. It felt like waking from one nightmare into an improbable dream. Someone knocked softly on the door. "Come in," Tessa called. Mrs. Brennan entered with a tray. "Good morning, dear. I brought you breakfast. Adrian thought you might like to eat in your room while you get your bearings." The tray held scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, and hot tea. The smell made Tessa's stomach growl. "This is wonderful, thank you. But you don't have to wait on me. I can come down for meals." Mrs. Brennan set the tray on a small table by the window. "Today you rest. Tomorrow we'll talk about routines and such. Adrian left for work already, but he said to tell you to make yourself at home. Explore the house, use whatever you need. There's a library downstairs that's quite nice." After Mrs. Brennan left, Tessa ate slowly, savoring every bite. The eggs were perfectly cooked, the fruit fresh and sweet. Simple food, but after days of nothing, it tasted extraordinary. She spent the morning in her room, still recovering her strength. In the afternoon she ventured downstairs. The house was quiet, peaceful. She found the library Mrs. Brennan had mentioned, a room lined with bookshelves and comfortable chairs. Large windows let in afternoon light. It was the kind of room that invited you to curl up and read for hours. Tessa selected a novel and settled into one of the chairs. For the first time in days she felt safe enough to relax completely. No one was going to kick her out. No freezing streets waited outside. She had shelter, food, and time to heal. Adrian returned home around 6 that evening. He found Tessa in the library. "How are you feeling?" he asked, loosening his tie. He looked tired. "Much better. This room is wonderful. It's my favorite part of the house. I had it designed to be a retreat." He sat in the chair across from her. "Have you thought about what you might want to do going forward?" "I need to find work," Tessa said. "But I'm not sure where to start. Bradley's lies have probably spread through the whole community service network. And without references. I might have a solution for that," Adrian said. "I've been thinking about it. Mrs. Brennan really could use help. She's not getting any younger, though she'd hit me for saying so. The house is large and I'm not home enough to manage everything. If you're interested, I'd like to hire you as a household manager. You'd help Mrs. Brennan with cooking, maintaining the house, organizing. It would be a real job with a real salary." You're already letting me stay here for free, Tessa protested. I can't take your money too. It wouldn't be free. You'd be working. And honestly, you'd be helping me solve a real problem. This house runs on Mrs. Brennan's goodwill and determination, but it's too much for one person. I've been meaning to hire someone for months but haven't gotten around to it. You'd be perfect for the role. Tessa studied his face, looking for signs that this was charity disguised as employment. But he seemed genuine. What would the salary be? Adrian named a figure that made Tessa's eyes widen. It was more than she'd made at the community center. That's too much, she said. It's the going rate for household managers in this area. I checked. Actually, it's slightly below market rate, but we can revisit that after a trial period. Why are you doing all this? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something honest? Something I haven't told anyone? Tessa nodded. I'm lonely, he said simply. I built this company, made more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes, bought this beautiful house. And every night I come home to silence. Mrs. Brennan leaves at 5. I eat dinner alone. I work in my office alone. I go to bed alone. I wake up and do it all again. I'm successful by every measure society cares about, and I'm more alone than I've ever been. The confession hung in the air between them. Tessa saw the vulnerability in his eyes, the real pain behind the successful exterior. So yes, Adrian continued, I'm helping you, but you're helping me too. Having someone else here, having conversation and life in this house, that's worth more than money to me. Does that make sense? Yes, Tessa said softly. It makes perfect sense. So will you take the job? Tessa smiled, feeling something like hope bloom in her chest for the first time since Bradley's betrayal. Yes, I accept. Thank you. Adrian's relief was visible. Thank you. Now Mrs. Brennan left dinner warming in the kitchen. Will you join me? I hate eating alone, and she made enough for 4 people. They ate together at the kitchen table, the formal dining room feeling too big and cold. Mrs. Brennan had made pot roast with vegetables, comfort food that filled the kitchen with warmth. As they ate, they talked. Adrian asked about Tessa's life before the community center, and she found herself sharing stories about her mother, about growing up with limited resources but unlimited love. She sounds like a remarkable woman, Adrian said. She was. She taught me that kindness matters more than wealth. That helping others is what gives life meaning. Tessa paused. I'm struggling with that lesson right now, honestly. Kindness led me to trust Bradley. It led me to the streets. No, Adrian said firmly. Bradley's cruelty led you to the streets. Your kindness is what made you survive it without becoming bitter. Don't let one person's betrayal steal something that's fundamentally good about you. The words settled into Tessa's heart like a bomb. Maybe he was right. Maybe she didn't have to let this experience change who she was. Over the next few days, Tessa settled into a routine. She worked with Mrs. Brennan during the day, learning the systems of the house. Mrs. Brennan was patient and kind, teaching her everything from how Adrian liked his coffee to where all the cleaning supplies were kept. The work was satisfying in its simplicity. After years of dealing with complex social problems and limited resources, there was something peaceful about maintaining a beautiful space. Evenings, she and Adrian would have dinner together. Sometimes they'd talk for hours, sharing stories and perspectives. Other times they'd sit in comfortable silence, each reading or working on their own projects. The house began to feel less like a museum and more like a home. Tessa started adding small touches. Fresh flowers in the main rooms. She rearranged some furniture to make spaces feel more inviting. She cooked meals that filled the house with good smells. Adrian noticed every change, his face lighting up each time he discovered something new. You're transforming this place, he said one evening. It feels alive. It was always beautiful, Tessa replied. It just needed someone to love it a little. 2 weeks after moving in, Tessa woke to snow falling outside her window. Soft, gentle flakes that covered everything in white. She got up and went to the window, watching the snow transform the garden into a winter wonderland. It was beautiful, and for the first time since that awful night in the park, she could appreciate the beauty of winter without fear. She heard a knock and turned to see Adrian in the doorway, already dressed for work. I wanted to check on you, he said. I know snow must bring back hard memories. It does, Tessa admitted. But different ones too. I'm remembering snow days as a kid, making snow angels with my mom. Playing in the park. Good memories along with the bad ones. I'm glad. Adrian hesitated. I have to go to a charity dinner next week. It's a business obligation, very boring. But I was wondering if you'd come with me? I usually skip the social parts of these events because I don't enjoy going alone. But if you were there, it might actually be bearable. Are you asking me on a date? Tessa asked, surprised. No, Adrian said quickly. Well, I don't know. Maybe? I'm not very good at this. I'm asking if you'd accompany me to an event where I'd appreciate having a friend by my side. If that sounds like a date, we can call it that. If not, we can call it a work function. I'll leave the definition up to you. Tessa laughed, charmed by his awkward honesty. I'd be happy to go with you as a friend. Though I should warn you, I don't have anything appropriate to wear to a fancy charity dinner. That's easily solved. Mrs. Brennan knows a great shop. Consider it part of the job. I need you to look professional when representing my household. You're using that as an excuse to buy me clothes, aren't you? Completely, Adrian admitted with a grin. Is it working? Fine. But nothing too expensive. Too late. I'm texting Mrs. Brennan right now. Watching him type on his phone, smiling like he'd won a victory, Tessa felt something shift in her chest. Warmth. Affection. Gratitude, yes, but something more. Something she wasn't quite ready to name yet. Her life had fallen apart in the worst possible way. She'd been betrayed, abandoned, left to die in the cold. But somehow, impossibly, she'd ended up here. In this house with this kind, lonely man who made her laugh and treated her with more respect than her own family had shown. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe kindness did matter. Maybe it brought its own rewards in unexpected ways. Outside, the snow continued to fall, each flake a small promise of new beginnings. Mrs. Brennan arrived the next morning with a mission. She swept into the house carrying several shopping bags and wearing a determined expression. Right then, she announced. We're finding you the perfect outfit for this dinner. Adrian may not know how to properly ask a woman on a date, but we'll make sure you look stunning regardless. It's not a date, Tessa protested, following Mrs. Brennan upstairs. He said he just wants company. Oh, honey, Mrs. Brennan said with a knowing smile. I've worked for that man for 8 years. I've never seen him invite anyone to anything. He avoids social events like they're personal torture. If he's asking you to go, it means something. In Tessa's room, Mrs. Brennan laid out several options. There was a deep green dress, elegant and sophisticated. A blue dress with delicate beading. A burgundy dress with a flowing skirt. All beautiful, all far nicer than anything Tessa had ever owned. These are too much, Tessa said, running her hand over the green fabric. Nonsense. You're representing Adrian's household at a high society event. You need to look the part. Try them on. Let's see which one makes you feel most confident. The green dress fit perfectly, hugging her curves and falling just below her knees. Tessa looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked elegant, poised, nothing like the person who'd been freezing in the streets 3 weeks ago. That's the one, Mrs. Brennan said with satisfaction. You look absolutely beautiful, dear. I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. You're not pretending to be anyone. You're just letting people see what was always there. Now, we need to talk about shoes and accessories. By the time Mrs. Brennan finished, Tessa had a complete outfit including shoes, a simple necklace and a small clutch purse. She felt overwhelmed by the generosity. Why is Adrian being so kind to me? She asked Mrs. Brennan as they sat in her room drinking tea. I still don't understand it. Mrs. Brennan was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Adrian is a good man who's made himself very lonely. He had a fiancée once about 6 years ago. Rebecca. She was beautiful, sophisticated, everything society said he should want. But she didn't love him. She loved his money and his status. When he found out she'd been cheating on him with his business partner, it destroyed something in him. Not just his trust in her, but his faith that anyone could want him for himself rather than what he had. That's awful, Tessa said. It was. He threw himself into work after that. Built his company even bigger, made even more money. But he stopped letting people close. Stopped believing anyone could care about him rather than his wallet. Until you. But I didn't do anything special. Exactly. You didn't want anything from him. You didn't even want his help at first. You're not impressed by his money or his house or his status. You see him as a person. Do you know how rare that is for someone in his position? Tessa hadn't thought about it that way. She'd been so focused on her own situation, on being grateful for the help she'd received, that she hadn't considered what Adrian might be getting from their arrangement. He's a good person, Tessa said. He deserves to be happy. Yes, he does. And maybe you both deserve a chance at happiness together. Mrs. Brennan patted Tessa's hand. Now, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about navigating a high society charity dinner. Consider it part of your training. The week leading up to the dinner passed quickly. Tessa continued working with Mrs. Brennan, learning more about managing the household. She discovered she enjoyed the work. There was satisfaction in maintaining order, in creating a comfortable environment. And unlike the community center where resources were always scarce and problems often overwhelming, here she could actually solve issues and see immediate results. Adrian came home earlier each evening, and they'd taken to having dinner together regularly. He'd talk about his day, usually complaining about meetings and corporate politics. Tessa would share stories about her day, making him laugh with descriptions of her attempts to master Mrs. Brennan's complex filing system. "I don't know how you keep track of everything," Tessa said one evening. "The household accounts alone are like a full-time job." "Mrs. Brennan is a organizational genius," Adrian agreed. "I couldn't manage without her. And now I have you too, which makes things even better." "I'm not doing that much yet." "You're doing more than you realize. This house feels different now. It feels like a home instead of just a place I sleep." "That's because of you." The night of the charity dinner arrived. Tessa spent the afternoon getting ready, her nerves growing with each passing hour. Mrs. Brennan helped her with her hair, pulling it into an elegant style that showed off her face. The green dress looked even better than she remembered. When Tessa came downstairs, Adrian was waiting in the foyer wearing a perfectly tailored black suit. He looked up as she descended the stairs, and his expression made her heart skip. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." The dinner was held at a luxury hotel downtown. Adrian's driver dropped them at the entrance, where photographers waited to capture attendees. Adrian offered his arm and Tessa took it, trying not to show how nervous she was. Inside, the ballroom was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers, round tables with white linens, flowers everywhere. Well-dressed people mingled, holding champagne glasses and making conversation that looked effortless. Tessa had never been anywhere like it. "You okay?" Adrian murmured. "Terrified," Tessa admitted. "Good. That makes two of us. But we'll survive it together. Just stay close." They found their assigned table and Adrian introduced her to the other guests. Business associates, their spouses, a local politician. Everyone was polite, but Tessa caught the curious looks, people clearly wondering who she was and why she was with Adrian. Dinner was served, course after course of food that tasted good but seemed almost too pretty to eat. Conversation flowed around the table. Adrian participated when necessary, but Tessa noticed he seemed uncomfortable, his responses brief and formal. "You hate this, don't you?" she whispered during a lull. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone paying attention. These events are necessary for business. But yes, I hate every minute of them usually. Tonight's different though." "How so?" "I have you here. That makes it bearable." After dinner there was dancing. A live band played on a small stage and couples moved onto the dance floor. Adrian stood and offered his hand. "Dance with me?" "I'm not a good dancer," Tessa warned. "Neither am I. We'll figure it out together." On the dance floor, Adrian held her carefully, respectfully. They moved slowly to the music, finding their rhythm. This close, Tessa could see the gray threading through his dark hair, the lines around his eyes that spoke of too many long nights working. But she could also see kindness in his face, sincerity in his eyes. "Thank you for coming tonight," Adrian said. "I know it's outside your comfort zone. Thank you for inviting me. And for everything else. The job, the home, the second chance. I don't know how to properly thank you. You don't need to thank me. You've given me more than you realize." "What have I given you?" "Hope," Adrian said simply. "Hope that life can be more than just work and loneliness. Hope that genuine connection is still possible. You've reminded me what I've been missing." Tessa's breath caught. They were venturing into territory that felt both exciting and terrifying. She liked Adrian, admired him, appreciated everything he'd done. But she was also aware of the vast gulf between their worlds. She was living in his house, working for him. The power dynamics were complicated. As if sensing her thoughts, Adrian said, "I'm not expecting anything from you. I hope you know that. Our arrangement doesn't obligate you to anything beyond the work we agreed on. If my feelings are making you uncomfortable, tell me and I'll step back." "Your feelings?" "I think you know I care about you. As more than just an employee or even a friend. But I understand if you don't feel the same way. You've been through trauma and you need time to heal. I'm not going to pressure you." The song ended. They stood on the dance floor, other couples moving around them, and Tessa made a decision. "I do feel the same way," she said quietly. "But I'm scared. Everything in my life fell apart so quickly. I'm afraid to trust these good feelings, afraid they'll disappear just as fast. I understand that fear. I have it too. But maybe we can be scared together. Maybe we can take things slowly and see where they lead. I'd like that. Adrian smiled, that genuine smile that transformed his whole face. Then let's start with finishing this evening. And tomorrow maybe we could have dinner together. Not as employer and employee. Just as two people who enjoy each other's company. That sounds perfect. They returned to their table. The rest of the evening passed in a pleasant blur. Tessa talked with the other guests, finding herself more comfortable now that she understood why she was there. She wasn't trying to impress anyone or fit into their world. She was just herself, and that was enough. On the ride home, Adrian took her hand. Neither of them spoke, but the silence was comfortable, full of promise. When they reached the house, he walked her to her door like a gentleman from another era. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "Thank you for inviting me. Sleep well, Tessa." "You too, Adrian." She went into her room and closed the door, leaning against it with a smile. Her life had been destroyed by cruelty and lies. But it was being rebuilt by kindness and genuine care. She didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. The morning after the charity dinner, Tessa woke with a sense of lightness she hadn't felt in years. Sunlight streamed through her window, and for a moment she just lay there, savoring the safety and comfort of her surroundings. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Mrs. Brennan entered with a knowing smile and a cup of tea. "Good morning. I heard the evening went well. How did you hear anything? We just got back last night." Adrian was whistling when he came down for breakfast. "That man never whistles. So I know something good happened." Mrs. Brennan set the tea on the nightstand. "I'm happy for you both, dear. You deserve something good." After Mrs. Brennan left, Tessa got ready for the day. She found Adrian in the kitchen, cooking eggs at the stove. He traded his usual suit for jeans and a blue sweater, looking younger and more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "You cook?" she asked, surprised. "I can manage breakfast. It's about the extent of my culinary skills. I was hoping you'd join me." They ate together at the kitchen table, the morning sun warming the room. It felt domestic and comfortable, like something they'd been doing for years instead of weeks. "Tell me more about your mother," Adrian said. "You mention her often, but always in fragments. I'd like to know the whole story." Tessa wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, gathering her thoughts. Her name was Diana. She was a social worker, spent her life helping families in crisis. We didn't have much money, but she always said we were rich in the things that mattered. Love, kindness, purpose. She sounds remarkable. She was. After she died, I felt lost. I went into community service work because it felt like continuing her legacy. That's how I ended up at Bradley Center. I thought I was honoring her memory by helping people. Turns out I was just setting myself up to be taken advantage of. "You weren't taken advantage of because you were kind," Adrian said firmly. "You were betrayed because Bradley is cruel. There's a difference. Sometimes it's hard to see the difference when you're freezing on a park bench wondering if you're going to die." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. "I wish I'd found you sooner. I walk past that park every few months when I need to clear my head. If I hadn't decided to take that walk that specific night. But you did. Maybe my mother was watching out for me, sending the right person at the right time. Tell me more about her. What did she like to do?" Tessa smiled, memories flowing. She loved to cook. Not fancy food, just simple comfort meals that made the house smell amazing. She'd dance in the kitchen while she cooked, terrible dancing that made me laugh. And she sang, though she couldn't carry a tune to save her life. She was terrible at both but did them anyway because they made her happy. She taught you to find joy in simple things. She did. She also taught me to stand up for what's right, to help others even when it's hard, to believe in people's capacity for good. Tessa paused. "I'm struggling with that last one lately." Adrian was quiet for a moment. "Can I share something about my past? Something I haven't told anyone in a long time?" "Of course. My father was a difficult man. Demanding, cold, never satisfied with anything I did. He built a small tech company and expected me to follow in his footsteps. I tried to please him for years. Studied what he wanted me to study, worked in his company, lived the life he'd planned for me. It was never enough. What happened? He died when I was 30. Heart attack at his desk. And my first feeling wasn't grief. It was relief. I felt free for the first time in my life." Adrian's voice was heavy with old pain. "What kind of person feels relieved when their father dies?" "A person who was finally free from someone who hurt them," Tessa said gently. "That doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you human. I threw myself into work after he died. Built the company bigger than he ever imagined, partly to prove I could do it, partly because work was easier than dealing with feelings. I dated Rebecca because she fit the image of what I thought I should want. She was beautiful and sophisticated and knew all the right people. I didn't love her, not really. I think part of me knew she didn't love me either. But it was safer than actually opening my heart to someone. What made you finally end it? I came home early one day and found her with my business partner in our bed. The betrayal hurt, but what hurt more was realizing I'd wasted years with someone I never really connected with. I'd been so afraid of genuine intimacy that I'd settled for a hollow imitation of a relationship. Tessa squeezed his hand. We've both been hurt by people we trusted. Yes, but I think we've learned from it too. I know what I want now, what matters. Not perfection or status or someone who fits an image. I want genuine connection with someone who sees me, not my bank account. Someone who makes me want to be better. Someone like you. The confession hung in the air between them. Tessa felt her heart racing, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through her. I'm scared, she admitted. Everything feels too good too fast. I keep waiting for something to go wrong. I'm scared too. But maybe being scared together is better than being safe and alone. They spent the rest of the morning talking, sharing stories from their childhoods, their hopes, their regrets. Adrian told her about his love of building things, how writing code felt like creating order from chaos. Tessa shared her dreams of one day starting her own community center, one built on genuine care rather than personal ambition. You could do that, Adrian said. With the right support and resources, you could create something really special. That's a long way off. Right now I'm just grateful to have a job and a place to stay. What if it didn't have to be so far off? What if you had a partner who believed in your vision and had the resources to help make it happen? Tessa looked at him carefully. Are you offering to fund a community center? I'm offering to support you in whatever you want to do with your life. If that's a community center, great. If it's something else entirely, that's great too. I believe in you, Tessa. I've seen how you care for people, how you think about making things better. That's rare and valuable. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're kind even after being betrayed. I know you work hard and take pride in doing things well. I know you make my house feel like a home and my life feel less empty. That's enough for me. Mrs. Brennan interrupted their conversation, poking her head into the kitchen. Sorry to disturb, but Adrian, you have a call. Something about the Thompson account. Adrian sighed. Work never stops. I'm sorry, I need to take this. Go ahead. I'll clean up here. After Adrian left, Tessa carried the dishes to the sink. She was rinsing them when Mrs. Brennan returned. That man is smitten with you, the older woman said with a smile. It's complicated. Love is always complicated. But sometimes the complicated things are the most worthwhile. Mrs. Brennan picked up a dish towel and started drying. I've known Adrian for 8 years. I've watched him work himself to exhaustion, isolate himself, convince himself he doesn't need or deserve happiness. You're changing that. Don't underestimate what a gift that is. I don't want to be just a change for him. I don't want to be a project or a rescue mission. You're not. You're someone who's changing his life by being yourself. That's different. You're not trying to fix him or save him. You're just sharing your life with him, and that's making both of you better. That's what real partnership looks like. Tessa thought about that as she finished the dishes. Mrs. Brennan was right. She wasn't trying to change Adrian or mold him into something. They were just two people who'd been lonely and hurt, finding comfort in each other's company. Maybe that was enough to build something real on. Adrian returned an hour later looking stressed. I have to go into the office for a few hours. Crisis with a client. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for your work. That's what pays for this beautiful house. Will you be here when I get back? Where else would I be? I don't know. Part of me keeps expecting to come home and find you've realized this is all too strange and left. Tessa walked over to him and straightened his tie, a gesture that felt intimate and natural. I'm not going anywhere. Go take care of your crisis. I'll be here. After he left, Tessa spent the afternoon working with Mrs. Brennan, learning more about the household systems. But her mind kept drifting back to their conversation that morning. To Adrian's vulnerability, his honesty about his past and his fears. To the way he looked at her like she was something precious. She'd spent so much time afraid that something bad would happen. Maybe it was time to believe that something good could last. Maybe it was time to trust again, not because she was naive but because she was brave enough to try. That evening, Adrian came home looking exhausted but happier. Crisis averted. For now at least. Good. I made dinner. Well, Mrs. Brennan supervised while I made dinner. There's a difference. They ate together talking about nothing and everything. And when Adrian walked her to her room that night, he paused at the door. Thank you for today, he said. For listening, for understanding, for staying. Thank you for trusting me with your story. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, a gesture so gentle it made Tessa's heart ache. Then he stepped back, giving her space. Good night, Tessa. Good night, Adrian. In her room, Tessa got ready for bed with a smile on her face. Yes, she was scared. Yes, this was complicated. But maybe complicated was okay if it was also real. Maybe being scared was worth it if it meant not being alone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, new steps forward. But for tonight, she had warmth and safety and the beginning of something that felt like hope. After everything she'd been through, that was more than enough. The weeks that followed fell into a comfortable rhythm. Tessa woke each morning with purpose, helping Mrs. Brennan manage the household but also bringing her own touches to the space. She'd started a small herb garden on the kitchen windowsill, filling the room with the scent of basil and rosemary. She'd rearranged the living room furniture to make it more inviting for conversation. Small changes, but each one made the house feel more alive. Adrian noticed everything. He'd come home from work and comment on the new flowers in the entryway, or the way she'd organized his office bookshelf by topic rather than color, making his reference materials easier to find. His face would light up with each discovery, like a child finding small gifts. You're making this place feel like a real home, he told her one evening as they cooked dinner together. She was teaching him to make pasta sauce from scratch, something her mother had taught her. It was always beautiful, Tessa replied, stirring the bubbling sauce. It just needed someone to care about it. Not someone. You specifically. Mrs. Brennan kept everything clean and organized, but it still felt like a showroom. Now it feels lived in. Loved. They'd fallen into a pattern of cooking together several nights a week. Adrian was a terrible cook, but he was enthusiastic and willing to learn. He'd chop vegetables while she handled the more complex tasks, and they'd talk while they worked. These moments felt precious to Tessa, simple domestic activities that created intimacy without pressure. Tell me about your work, Tessa said as Adrian massacred a tomato with the knife. You never really explain what you do. Because it's boring, Adrian said, looking up from the cutting board. I run a software company. We create systems that help businesses manage their operations more efficiently. That doesn't sound boring. What kind of systems? Inventory management, customer relations, data analysis. Things that make companies run smoother. It's like creating organizational tools but in digital form. So you're basically doing what I do with this house but for businesses. Adrian paused, considering. I never thought of it that way, but yes. I like bringing order to chaos. Making things work better. What made you start the company? After my father died, I realized I didn't want to just maintain what he'd built. I wanted to create something new, something that was entirely mine. So I took what he'd started and transformed it into something different. Better, I hope. You succeeded. Mrs. Brennan told me your company is very successful. Financially, yes. But success means different things now than it did when I started. Adrian set down the knife and looked at her directly. 10 years ago, I would have said success meant being the biggest, making the most money, beating all the competitors. Now I think success means having something worth coming home to. Someone worth being with. A life that feels full instead of empty. Tessa felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. You're getting better at saying what you feel. I have good motivation to practice. They ate the pasta together at the kitchen table, the sauce not perfect but made with care. Adrian declared it the best meal he'd ever had, and while Tessa suspected he was exaggerating, his sincerity made her smile. Later that week, Adrian surprised her with an invitation. There's an art exhibit downtown opening this Friday. Contemporary pieces from local artists. Would you like to go? I don't know much about art, Tessa admitted. Neither do I. We can be confused together. But I thought it might be nice to do something different. The exhibit was held in a converted warehouse, the industrial space transformed into a gallery. The art ranged from abstract paintings to sculptures to mixed media pieces that Tessa didn't quite understand but found interesting. They wandered through the space, stopping to examine pieces that caught their attention. What do you think of this one? Adrian asked, standing in front of a large canvas covered in swirls of blue and green. I think it looks like the ocean. Or maybe it looks like chaos. Or maybe chaos is the ocean and the ocean is chaos and it's all the same thing. Adrian laughed. That's better than anything in the official description. See, you understand art perfectly. They paused in front of a sculpture, a figure made of twisted metal that somehow conveyed both strength and vulnerability. That reminds me of people, Tessa said softly. How we're all made of hard and soft parts twisted together. We pretend to be strong but we're all vulnerable underneath. Adrian took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. The gesture felt natural now, comfortable. Is that how you see yourself? Hard and soft twisted together? I think it's how I see everyone. We all have scars and strengths. The scars don't make us weak. They make us human. They left the exhibit as the sun was setting, the city lights beginning to glow against the darkening sky. Adrian suggested a walk through the nearby park, and despite the cold evening air, Tessa agreed. This park was different from the one where he'd found her, but the memory still lingered. Are you cold? Adrian asked, noticing her shiver. A little, but it's okay. He shrugged out of his coat and draped it around her shoulders. The gesture was old-fashioned, chivalrous, and it made Tessa feel cared for in a way she'd almost forgotten was possible. They walked in comfortable silence for a while before Adrian spoke. I have something I want to ask you. A business proposition, but also something more. I'm listening. I've been thinking about what you said about wanting to start a community center someday. What if we didn't wait? What if we started planning it now? Tessa stopped walking. Adrian, I can't let you fund something like that. It's too much. Hear me out. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering partnership. You have the vision and the experience. I have the resources and business knowledge. Together we could create something really special. A center that actually helps people, that doesn't run out of money, that's built on genuine care rather than someone's ego. Why would you want to do this? Because I've spent 15 years making money and I'm tired of it being meaningless. I want to build something that matters. With you. Not for you, with you. As partners. Tessa's mind raced. The idea was tempting, almost overwhelming. To have the resources to create the kind of center she'd always imagined, without the constant struggle of limited funds and difficult compromises. But it also felt too fast, too big. I need time to think about this, she said. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. They continued their walk and Tessa tried to process everything. She'd gone from having nothing to having more opportunities than she'd ever dreamed of. It felt surreal, like she'd wake up and find herself back on that frozen park bench. Can I ask you something? Tessa said. Why me? I'm sure you know lots of people with experience in nonprofit work, people with better credentials and connections than I have. You're right, I do. But credentials don't mean someone has a genuine heart for the work. You do. I've seen how you think about people, how you solve problems with compassion instead of just efficiency. That's rare. That's valuable. And selfishly, I want to work with someone I care about. Someone who makes me want to be better. They returned to the house as the evening grew late. In the foyer, Adrian helped Tessa out of his coat. Thank you for tonight, he said. For coming with me, for listening to my ideas, for being patient with me while I figure out how to do this. Do what? Let someone in. Be with someone without keeping all my walls up. It's harder than I expected. Tessa reached up and touched his face, a gesture that felt bold but right. You're doing fine. We're both learning as we go. That's okay. Adrian turned his head and kissed her palm, a gesture so tender it made her breath catch. Good night, Tessa. Good night, Adrian. In her room, Tessa thought about his offer. A community center built on solid foundations, with enough resources to really help people. It was everything she'd wanted. But it also meant tying her future even more closely to Adrian's. If things between them didn't work out, if this relationship fell apart, everything would become complicated. But maybe that risk was worth taking. Maybe believing in the possibility of good things was braver than protecting herself from potential pain. Her mother had always taught her to have courage, to take chances on things that mattered. This mattered. Adrian mattered. The work they could do together mattered. The next morning, over breakfast, Tessa made her decision. I want to do it, she told Adrian. The community center. As partners. Equal partners with equal say in how it's run. Adrian's face lit up with a joy so pure it made Tessa's heart soar. Really? You mean it? I mean it. But we do this right. We create something sustainable, something that will last even if you decide to do something else with your money someday. I won't build something on a foundation that could crumble. Agreed. We'll set it up as an independent organization with its own funding structure. I'll provide the initial investment, but we'll work toward making it self-sustaining. When do we start? Right now if you want. I'll clear my schedule for this afternoon. We can start planning, figuring out what we need, what the first steps should be. They spent the afternoon in Adrian's office, surrounded by notebooks and laptops, planning and dreaming. They discussed locations, programs, staffing needs. Adrian brought his business mind to the conversation, asking practical questions about sustainability and growth. Tessa brought her experience and vision, describing the programs that had worked at Bradley's center and the ones she'd always wished she could implement. Hours passed without them noticing. Mrs. Brennan brought them lunch and dinner, both meals eaten at the desk while they worked. By the time they finally stopped, it was past midnight and they had the beginnings of a real plan. "This is going to be amazing," Adrian said, looking at their notes spread across the desk. "You're amazing." "We're amazing," Tessa corrected. "This is something we're building together." Adrian stood and pulled her up from her chair, wrapping his arms around her in a hug. Tessa leaned into him, feeling safe and valued and hopeful. This was real. This was happening. She was building something meaningful with someone who believed in her. "Thank you," Adrian whispered into her hair, "for trusting me with this dream. Thank you for making it possible." They stood there for a long moment, holding each other, the office quiet except for their breathing. Outside, the city slept. Inside, two people who'd been lonely were learning what it meant to build something together. Not just a business, not just a relationship, but a life that mattered. What would you do if someone offered to make your biggest dream come true? Would you trust them? Would you take the risk? Tessa is learning that sometimes the bravest thing is saying yes to hope. Let me know in the comments what you think she should do next, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this love story continues to unfold. Spring arrived gradually, melting the last remnants of winter snow and bringing new life to Adrian's garden. Tessa had taken to spending mornings outside when weather permitted, planning where she'd plant vegetables once the ground fully thawed. These quiet moments of planning and dreaming had become precious to her. She was sketching a garden layout one Saturday morning when Mrs. Brennan came outside with her tablet. "Dear, I think you should see this," the older woman said, her expression troubled. Tessa took the tablet and looked at the screen. It showed a news article from the local paper. The headline read, "Community Center Director Arrested for Embezzlement." Her breath caught. The photo showed Bradley being led away in handcuffs. "Keep reading," Mrs. Brennan said gently. The article explained that an audit of the community center's finances had revealed systematic theft spanning 3 years. Bradley had been taking donation money and using it for personal expenses, including paying off gambling debts. The investigation had been triggered when the center applied for a city grant and officials noticed discrepancies in the financial records. "There's more," Mrs. Brennan said, scrolling down. "They found evidence that he'd falsified documents and blamed others to cover his tracks. Your name is mentioned. They're saying you were one of the people he tried to frame." Tessa's hands shook as she read. The article quoted investigators saying Bradley had destroyed evidence and created false records to shift blame to former employees. A detective was quoted saying they were working to clear the names of those falsely accused. "How do you feel?" Mrs. Brennan asked. "I don't know. Angry that he did this. Sad that he hurt so many people. Vindicated that the truth came out. All of it mixed together." Adrian appeared in the doorway. He must have seen the tablet in her hands because his expression immediately shifted to concern. "You saw," he said, coming to sit beside her on the garden bench. "You knew about this?" "I got a call from my lawyer this morning. The investigators want to speak with you. They're contacting everyone who worked at the center to get statements. I wanted to tell you myself, but Mrs. Brennan beat me to it." Tessa looked back at the article, reading it more carefully now. Bradley had stolen over $30,000. The center was being shut down. Staff members who'd remained had lost their jobs. Families that depended on the services had nowhere to go. "All those people," Tessa said quietly. "All the families we helped. Where will they go now?" "That's not your responsibility," Adrian said firmly. "Bradley destroyed that center, not you. But those families still need help. And we're building something that will help them. Our center will be better, stronger, more sustainable. We're already working on it." Tessa nodded, but her mind was churning. She thought about Jennifer, Bradley's wife. Had she known? Had she participated in the theft or been another victim of Bradley's deception? "What happens now?" she asked. "The police want to interview you. Get your account of what happened, any evidence you might have about the financial management. It's routine and my lawyer will be with you. They're also interested in having you write a statement about how Bradley's actions impacted you personally." "Will I have to see him?" "No. This is separate from any trial. You're a witness, not a defendant. You did nothing wrong, Tessa. Everyone will know that now." The interview with police happened 3 days later. Detective Morrison was a woman in her 40s with a kind but professional manner. She asked detailed questions about Tessa's time at the center, about the financial systems, about the day Bradley fired her. He told me I'd stolen money, Tessa explained. But I never had access to the donation account. Only Bradley and Jennifer could make withdrawals. We've confirmed that, Detective Morrison said. Your name wasn't on any of the actual account access forms. Bradley created false documents claiming you had authorization, but the bank records show otherwise. What about Jennifer? Was she involved? We're still investigating her role. But from what we can tell, she believed Bradley's lies about you. She didn't know about the gambling debts or the theft. Tessa felt a surge of pity for Jennifer. She'd been betrayed too, just in a different way. After the interview, Adrian took Tessa to lunch at a quiet cafe. She picked at her food, her mind replaying everything. Talk to me, Adrian said. What are you thinking? I'm thinking about Bradley. About how he threw away everything. He had a family, a job helping people, a community that trusted him. And he destroyed it all for what? To feed a gambling habit? It seems so pointless. Addiction makes people do terrible things. That doesn't excuse what he did to you, but it might explain it. Do you think he feels bad about it now? Do you think he realizes what he lost? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe he's still blaming everyone else for his problems. Some people never learn. They finished lunch and drove home. Tessa spent the afternoon in the garden, digging in the soil, preparing beds for planting. Physical work helped clear her mind. She was washing dirt from her hands at the outdoor faucet when a car pulled into the driveway. A woman got out, someone Tessa recognized immediately. Jennifer. Adrian appeared from the house, his posture protective. Can I help you? Jennifer looked older than Tessa remembered, worn down by stress. I need to talk to Tessa. Please. Just for a few minutes. Tessa dried her hands on her jeans. It's okay, Adrian. He looked uncertain but nodded. I'll be right inside if you need me. After he left, Jennifer and Tessa stood in awkward silence. Finally, Jennifer spoke. I owe you an apology. A massive apology. I believed Bradley when he said you'd stolen money. I helped spread those lies. I turned people against you. And I was completely wrong. Did you know about the gambling? Tessa asked. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. No. I had no idea. We were struggling financially, but I thought it was because the center wasn't getting enough donations. I didn't know Bradley was stealing. I didn't know he was lying about you. I didn't know anything. Where is he now? Out on bail, staying with his mother. Our marriage is over. I'm filing for divorce. The life we had, the plans we made, it's all gone. Jennifer wiped her eyes. I'm not here asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Deeply, truly sorry for what we did to you. Tessa studied Jennifer's face, seeing genuine remorse there. I appreciate you coming here to tell me. You're being gracious. You have every right to slam the door in my face. What good would that do? You're suffering consequences of Bradley's choices just like I did. Being cruel to you wouldn't change anything. How are you not angry? How are you not bitter after everything we did to you? Tessa thought about that question. A month ago, she might have been consumed with bitterness. But standing in this beautiful garden, working toward building something meaningful, loved by people who saw her value, she found that anger had lost its grip on her. I was angry, Tessa said honestly. When I was freezing on the streets, I was furious at both of you. But anger wasn't keeping me warm. It wasn't feeding me. It wasn't making anything better. At some point, I had to choose between carrying that anger or moving forward. Moving forward seemed like the better option. You're a better person than I am. I'm just a person who learned that holding on to hurt only hurts yourself. What will you do now? Try to rebuild. I'm looking for work, trying to figure out how to move forward. The community I thought I had turned their backs when the truth came out. Turns out people are only supportive when you're not connected to a scandal. I know that feeling well. Jennifer glanced toward the house. You landed on your feet. This is a beautiful home. Is Adrian your employer or something more? Both. He gave me a chance when no one else would. And yes, it's become something more. He's a good man. I'm glad. You deserve good things, Tessa. I hope you believe that. After Jennifer left, Tessa stood in the driveway for a long time, processing the conversation. Adrian came out and wrapped his arms around her from behind. You okay? I think so. That was hard but necessary. She needed to apologize and I needed to hear it. You were incredibly gracious with her. She's suffering too. Bradley destroyed her life along with mine. Being cruel wouldn't change that. Adrian turned her around to face him. This is what I love about you. Your capacity for compassion even when it would be easier to be hard. Your ability to see people's humanity even when they've hurt you. Well, the word hung in the air between them. Adrian's eyes widened slightly, like he hadn't meant to say it out loud. Did you just say you love me? Tessa asked softly. I did. I do. I love you, Tessa. I probably have for a while now, but I was afraid to say it. Afraid it was too soon or too complicated or that you wouldn't feel the same way. Tessa reached up and cupped his face in her hands. I love you too. I think I have since you gave me a second chance at life. Adrian kissed her then, gentle and tender, a promise of all the tomorrows they'd build together. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. Come on, Tessa said, taking his hand. We have a community center to plan. And a garden to plant. And a life to build. Let's not waste any more time. They walked into the house together, leaving the past behind and moving toward a future full of possibility. Bradley's betrayal had nearly destroyed Tessa, but it had also led her here, to this place, to this love, to this chance at something real and lasting. Sometimes the worst things that happened opened doors to the best things waiting to come. The weeks following Jennifer's visit brought a new energy to the house. Tessa and Adrian had thrown themselves into planning the community center, spending evenings going over budgets and design plans. But they'd also found time for simpler pleasures. Evening walks through the neighborhood. Cooking experiments that sometimes succeeded and sometimes resulted in laughter and takeout orders. Quiet mornings sharing coffee before Adrian left for work. The relationship between them had deepened into something comfortable and real. They'd moved past the initial uncertainty into a space where they could simply be themselves. Adrian had become less guarded, more willing to share his thoughts and fears. Tessa had learned to accept help without feeling diminished by it. One Saturday morning, Adrian had a suggestion. There's a farmer's market downtown. Would you want to go? We could get fresh things for your garden and ingredients for dinner tonight. The market was busy with weekend shoppers. Vendors sold everything from fresh produce to handmade crafts. Tessa wandered between stalls, examining plants and asking questions. Adrian followed, carrying the growing collection of purchases. You're really excited about this garden, he observed, watching her evaluate tomato seedlings with serious concentration. I used to garden with my mother. She taught me that growing things is hopeful. You plant seeds not knowing exactly what will come, but trusting that with care and patience, something good will grow. That's a nice metaphor for a lot of things. It is. Relationships, careers, community work. It all requires planting seeds and believing in growth. They bought seedlings, fresh vegetables, and a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers. On the way home they stopped at a small park. Families played on the playground while couples walked hand in hand. Adrian found a bench under a tree and pulled Tessa down beside him. I want to tell you something, he said, taking her hand. Something I've been thinking about for a while. Tessa felt a flutter of nervousness. Okay. When I found you in the park that night, I was in a dark place. Not dramatically dark, not suicidal or anything like that. But empty. I'd been successful by every external measure and inside I felt hollow. Going through motions without purpose. That walk was me trying to figure out if any of it mattered. What changed? You. Meeting you reminded me why anything matters. It's not about accumulating wealth or building empires. It's about connection. About caring for someone and being cared for in return. About building something that makes the world a little better. You gave me that. Tessa squeezed his hand. You gave me my life back. I was literally dying and you saved me. We saved each other. That's what I'm trying to say. This isn't me rescuing you or you rescuing me. It's two people who were struggling separately learning to build something together. That's more valuable than rescue. It's partnership. I love you, Tessa said simply. The words still felt new, special, not yet worn down by repetition. I love you too. Adrian paused, then continued. I want to ask you something. It might be too soon, and if it is, just say so. But I need to ask because I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore. Tessa's heart started racing. She wasn't sure what was coming, but the intensity in Adrian's eyes told her it was important. I want you to be more than my partner in the community center. More than someone who works in my home. More than the person I'm dating. I want you to be my partner in everything. My family. My future. My life. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. Opening it revealed a simple but beautiful ring, a diamond set in silver. Marry me, Tessa. Not because I'm trying to rescue you or because you owe me anything, but because I love you and I want to spend my life building beautiful things with you. Beautiful gardens and community centers and a family if you want that. Beautiful ordinary days that matter because we're sharing them. Tessa's eyes filled with tears. 6 months ago she'd been freezing to death, convinced her life was over. Now she sat in a sun-drenched park with a man who loved her, being offered a future she'd never dared to imagine. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." Adrian slipped the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly. They kissed while around them the park continued its Saturday activities, but in their bubble, the world had just shifted into something new and precious. "When did you buy this?" Tessa asked, admiring the ring. 3 weeks ago. I've been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. Then today, in the market, watching you pick out tomato plants and smile at strangers, I realized there is no perfect moment. Every moment with you is the right one. They stayed in the park for another hour, making plans and dreaming together. Tessa called Mrs. Brennan from Adrian's phone to share the news, and the older woman's delighted squeals were so loud Adrian could hear them without the phone being on speaker. "We should celebrate," Adrian said as they finally headed home. "Dinner somewhere special? Or we could have people over. Whatever you want. I just want dinner with you. Maybe Mrs. Brennan could join us if she wants." Simple and perfect like this day has been. Mrs. Brennan was waiting when they arrived home, tears of joy streaming down her face. She hugged them both, then insisted on helping prepare a celebration dinner. They cooked together in the kitchen, the three of them working in comfortable harmony, music playing and laughter filling the space. Over dinner they talked about wedding plans. Tessa wanted something small and meaningful. "I don't need a big production," she explained. "I don't have a lot of family or friends to invite after everything that happened. I just want the people who matter celebrating something real." "Then that's what we'll have," Adrian agreed. "Though I should warn you, I have business associates who'll expect invitations. We can keep them to the formal ceremony and skip them for the intimate parts if that works." They set a date 6 months away, enough time to plan but not so far that it felt distant. Mrs. Brennan immediately started making lists, her organizational skills in full force. After dinner, Adrian and Tessa went to sit in the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tessa leaned against Adrian, feeling perfectly content. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "What made you decide to propose now?" "Honestly? Because I was sure. For the first time in my life I was completely certain about something. With Rebecca, there was always doubt, always this feeling that I was doing what I should do rather than what I wanted to do. With you there's no doubt. Just certainty that this is right. I feel the same way. It's scary how right this feels, like it should be more complicated. Maybe we've both had enough complications. Maybe we deserve something that just works." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky darken and stars begin to appear. Tessa thought about the journey that had brought her here. The betrayal that had seemed like the end of everything. The frozen nights when she thought she'd die alone. The moment Adrian had found her and decided she was worth saving. All of it had led to this moment, to this garden, to this man who loved her. She'd lost everything and found something better. She'd been betrayed by family and found someone who chose to be her family. She'd nearly died in the cold and now sat surrounded by warmth and love and hope for the future. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked, sensing her thoughts had drifted. "About how life is strange. How the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing. About how sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters." "Do you regret anything?" "About what happened, how we met." Tessa considered the question carefully. "I regret that Bradley made choices that hurt people. I regret that families lost access to services they needed. I regret the pain Jennifer is going through. But do I regret the path that brought me to you? No. I'd go through it all again if this was the destination." Adrian pulled her closer. "You're stronger than you think. We're stronger together than either of us was alone." Later that night, after Mrs. Brennan had gone home and the house was quiet, Tessa stood in her room looking at the ring on her finger. It caught the light, sparkling with promise. She thought about calling someone to share the news, then remembered with a pang that she didn't have anyone to call. Bradley's betrayal had cost her more than just a job. It had cost her a community. But she was building a new community now. A different one, based on genuine connection rather than obligation or proximity. Mrs. Brennan had become like a mother to her. Adrian was her partner, her love, her future husband. And through the community center they were building, she'd create new relationships based on shared values and authentic care. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Adrian stood in the hallway looking uncertain. "I couldn't sleep," he said. "I kept thinking about you up here alone. Can I come in? Just to talk?" Tessa opened the door wider. They sat on the edge of her bed talking about everything and nothing. About the wedding, about the community center, about their hopes for the future. About the small fears that came with big commitments and the courage it took to trust in love. "I'm scared sometimes," Tessa admitted. "That I'll wake up and this will all be gone. That something will happen to take it away. I'm scared too. But being scared means we have something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. And we'll face whatever comes together. That's what partnership means." They talked until late into the night, until Tessa's eyes grew heavy and her words began to slur with exhaustion. Adrian kissed her forehead and stood to leave. "Sleep well, soon to be Mrs. Lancaster." "I like the sound of that," Tessa murmured, already half asleep. After he left, Tessa drifted off with a smile on her face. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new decisions, new steps toward building their future. But tonight, she had love and safety and the promise of all the tomorrows to come. After everything she'd survived, that was more than enough. It was everything. Spring had fully arrived, transforming Adrian's garden into a riot of color and life. Tessa spent her mornings tending the vegetables and flowers she'd planted, finding peace in the simple rhythm of watering and weeding. Wedding plans were progressing smoothly, and the community center design was nearly complete. Everything felt right, settled, hopeful. Then Bradley showed up. Tessa was in the garden, her hands deep in soil as she transplanted herbs, when Mrs. Brennan called from the back door. "Tessa, dear, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important." "Who is it?" Mrs. Brennan's expression was troubled. "It's Bradley Morgan. He's waiting in the driveway. I didn't want to let him in without asking you first." Tessa's first instinct was to refuse to see him. The man had destroyed her life, left her to die in the streets. What could he possibly have to say that she'd want to hear? But curiosity and something else, something like a need for closure, made her stand up and brush the dirt from her hands. "I'll talk to him. Will you stay nearby? Just in case." "Of course. And Adrian's on his way home. I called him as soon as Bradley arrived." Bradley stood beside a beat-up car that looked nothing like the vehicle he'd driven before. He'd lost weight, his face hollow and aged beyond his years. He wore jeans and a faded gray shirt, clothes that had seen better days. When he saw Tessa approaching, his face crumpled with emotion. "Tessa," he said, his voice breaking. "Thank you for seeing me. I wasn't sure you would." "I'm not sure why I am," Tessa replied, keeping several feet of distance between them. "What do you want, Bradley?" "To apologize. To explain. To tell you how sorry I am for what I did to you." Tears streamed down his face. "I destroyed your life. I left you on the streets to die. I told lies about you. I took everything from you. And I'm so sorry." Tessa watched him cry, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Anger, yes, but also pity for this broken man who'd once been her cousin, her family. "Why did you do it?" she asked. "Why did you steal? Why did you blame me?" Bradley wiped his eyes, struggling to compose himself. "Gambling. It started small, just occasional bets. Then it got bigger. I was losing money we didn't have, taking loans from dangerous people. I thought I could win it back. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. So you stole from the people we were supposed to be helping." "Yes. I know how terrible that is. Families that trusted us, that needed our help, and I stole from them. When the audit got scheduled, I panicked. I needed someone to blame and you were there. You trusted me. It was easy to make you the villain." "Easy," Tessa repeated, the word bitter on her tongue. "Was it easy to throw me out with nothing? Was it easy to let me freeze?" "No." Bradley looked directly at her, his face anguished. "Nothing about it was easy. Every day since then I've thought about you out there in the cold. I've had nightmares about it. When I heard someone found you, that you survived, it was the first relief I'd felt in months. You heard I survived and you didn't reach out. You didn't tell the truth. You let everyone keep believing your lies. I was a coward. I was scared of going to jail, of losing everything. So I stayed quiet and hoped it would all go away. Then the investigation happened and everything fell apart anyway. Jennifer left me. My mother can barely look at me. The community I thought I had turned their backs. I lost everything that mattered." Adrian's car pulled into the driveway. He got out quickly, his face dark with anger when he saw Bradley. He moved to stand beside Tessa, protective without being overbearing. "What's going on here?" Adrian demanded. "It's okay," Tessa said, touching his arm. "Bradley came to apologize. An apology doesn't undo what he did to you." "I know that," Bradley said quietly. "Nothing can undo it. I'm not here asking for forgiveness or expecting Tessa to make me feel better about what I did. I'm here because she deserved to hear the truth directly from me. She deserved to know that none of it was her fault, that she did nothing wrong, that I was the one who failed. A little late for that realization, Adrian said coldly. I know. But I had to say it anyway. Bradley turned back to Tessa. I'm going to prison. My lawyer says probably 3 to 5 years. Before I go, I wanted you to know the truth. And I wanted to tell you that if there's anything I can do to make this right, anything at all, I'll do it. There's nothing you can do, Tessa said. The damage is done. The center is closed. Families are without help. My reputation was destroyed. You can't fix any of that. I've given statements to the police, clearing your name officially. I've told them everything, how I lied about you, how I created false documents. It's all on record now. And I've been working with a journalist, telling the full story so everyone knows the truth. It's not much, but it's something. Tessa studied Bradley's face, looking for signs of manipulation, but she saw only genuine remorse. He was broken, destroyed by his own choices, and he knew it. Why are you really here? She asked. What do you want from me? I want you to know that you were right. About everything. About helping people mattering more than anything else. About kindness and compassion and doing the right thing even when it's hard. I threw away those lessons. I became everything our mothers taught us not to be. And I want you to keep being who you are. Don't let what I did make you hard or bitter. The world needs people like you. The words hung in the air. Tessa felt tears prickling her eyes, not from sadness but from the weight of the moment. This was closure, real closure. Not neat or comfortable but honest. I've been building a new community center, she said after a long silence. One based on real principles with proper financial oversight. It'll serve the families that lost access when your center closed. And it'll be better than anything you built because it's built on truth instead of lies. Bradley's face showed genuine relief. That's good. That's really good. I'm glad the work is continuing. I'm glad you found a way forward. No thanks to you. No. No thanks to me. Bradley looked at Adrian. Thank you for taking care of her. For giving her a chance when no one else would. I didn't do it for you, Adrian said sharply. I did it because Tessa deserved help. Because she's remarkable and kind and deserved better than what you gave her. She does deserve better. She always did. Bradley took a step toward his car. I should go. I just wanted to say what I needed to say. Tessa, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't forgive myself. But I hope you have a good life. I hope you're happy. You deserve all the good things I threw away. He got in his car and drove away, leaving Tessa and Adrian standing in the driveway. Are you okay? Adrian asked, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I think so. That was hard but also necessary. I needed to hear him acknowledge what he did. I needed to see that he understands the consequences of his choices. Do you forgive him? Tessa thought about the question carefully. I don't know. Part of me wants to because holding on to anger hurts me more than it hurts him. But another part remembers freezing on that bench, remembers thinking I was going to die alone. That's not something I can just let go of. You don't have to. Forgiveness isn't required. My mother would say everyone deserves forgiveness if they're truly sorry. Your mother sounds like she was a saint. But even saints are allowed to protect their own hearts. You can acknowledge Bradley's remorse without absolving him of what he did. They walked back toward the house, Mrs. Brennan waiting anxiously by the door. Is everything all right? She asked. Yes, Tessa said. It's all right. Bradley came to apologize and take responsibility. It doesn't change what happened, but it's something. That evening, Tessa and Adrian sat in the library, a fire burning in the fireplace despite the warm spring weather. Tessa felt emotionally drained from the encounter with Bradley. Can I ask you something? Adrian said. Why did you agree to see him? You could have sent him away. Because I needed to hear him say the words. I needed to hear him take responsibility without making excuses. And I needed to see that he's suffering consequences, that actions have meaning. Tessa paused. Also, I think I needed to prove to myself that I could face him without falling apart. That I've healed enough to stand in front of the person who hurt me and not be destroyed by it. You're incredibly strong. I'm not that strong. I just had good people helping me be strong. You, Mrs. Brennan, this home. All of it gave me a foundation to rebuild on. Adrian took her hand, looking at the engagement ring on her finger. In a few months you'll be my wife. We'll be family. Not the family that hurt you or let you down. But a family we're choosing to create together. I like that. Chosen family feels more meaningful than the family you're born into sometimes. We're going to have a good life, Tessa. We're going to build beautiful things together. We're going to help people through the community center. We're going to grow old in this house with its garden and its books. And we're going to do it all with honesty and care and the knowledge that what we have is real. Promise me something, Tessa said. Promise that if you ever struggle, if you ever face temptation to do something wrong, you'll come to me first. Promise we'll face problems together instead of making choices that hurt each other. I promise. And I need the same promise from you. You have it. We're partners. In everything. They sat together. In comfortable silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. Bradley's visit had stirred up old pain, but it had also shown Tessa how far she'd come. She was no longer the broken woman freezing on a park bench. She was someone building a future, someone loved and valued, someone with purpose and hope. The past couldn't be changed. Bradley would go to prison for his crimes. The families he'd hurt would have to rebuild. But the future was still unwritten, still full of possibility. And Tessa intended to fill it with all the good things she'd nearly lost the chance to experience. Love, purpose, family, and the simple joy of days lived with integrity and care. The morning of Tessa and Adrian's wedding arrived with perfect spring weather. Warm sunshine, a gentle breeze and clear blue skies. Tessa woke early, too excited to sleep, and went to the window. The garden was in full bloom, exactly as she'd planned months ago when they first decided to hold the ceremony there. Mrs. Brennan knocked and entered with coffee and a warm smile. Good morning, bride. Are you ready for today? I've been ready since he proposed. Maybe even before that. The ceremony was planned for late afternoon. Tessa spent the morning getting ready with Mrs. Brennan's help. Her dress was simple but elegant, a cream-colored gown that flowed when she moved. No veil, just flowers in her hair, fresh from the garden she'd planted with her own hands. You look beautiful, dear, Mrs. Brennan said, her eyes wet with tears. Your mother would be so proud of you. I hope so. I think about her a lot today. Wishing she could be here, but also knowing she'd be happy I found someone who loves me like Adrian does. She's here in spirit. I can feel it. The guest list was small as Tessa had wanted. Adrian's business associates attended the formal ceremony, but the intimate celebration afterward was just for the people who truly mattered. Mrs. Brennan, of course. Adrian's few close friends from college who'd stayed in touch despite his years of isolation. A handful of former colleagues from the community center who'd believed Tessa's innocence and reached out after the truth came out. And surprisingly, Jennifer. Tessa had invited her ex-cousin-in-law after careful thought. Jennifer was trying to rebuild her life, and including her felt like a gesture of grace and forgiveness. Jennifer had accepted with gratitude, arriving early to help set up chairs in the garden. You didn't have to invite me, Jennifer said, arranging flowers. After everything that happened. You're trying to do better. That deserves recognition. Besides, you were a victim of Bradley's lies too. We're both rebuilding. The ceremony itself was simple. A friend of Adrian's, a retired judge, officiated. They stood under an arch covered in climbing roses, facing each other while the small group of guests looked on. We're gathered here today to celebrate the union of two people who found each other at exactly the right moment, the judge began. Adrian and Tessa's story is one of hope and second chances. It reminds us that even in our darkest moments, life can surprise us with unexpected grace. Adrian squeezed Tessa's hands as the judge spoke. He looked handsome in his navy suit, his eyes never leaving her face. When it was time for vows, Adrian spoke first. Tessa, before I met you, I was successful but empty. I had everything money could buy and nothing that mattered. You showed me what it means to truly live. To care about someone more than myself. To build something meaningful. I promise to spend every day earning the gift of your love. To be your partner in all things. To build our community center and our family and our life together with honesty and care. I love you and I can't wait to spend forever with you. Tessa's voice shook with emotion as she delivered her vows. Adrian, you saved my life in the most literal sense. But more than that, you gave me a reason to believe in people again. You showed me that kindness still exists, that trust can be earned, that love is real and not just something from fairy tales. I promise to be your partner, your best friend, your family. To build beautiful things with you. To face challenges together. To never take for granted the second chance you gave me. I love you with everything I am. The judge pronounced them husband and wife. Adrian kissed Tessa softly as their guests applauded, and in that moment, everything felt perfect. Complete. Right. The reception was held on the patio, tables set with simple white cloths and centerpieces made from garden flowers. Mrs. Brennan had outdone herself with the food, a feast of Tessa's favorite dishes mixed with Adrian's preferences. Everyone ate and talked and laughed, the atmosphere relaxed and joyful. During dinner, Adrian stood to make a toast. I want to thank everyone for being here today. This gathering might be small, but everyone here matters to us. You're the people who supported us, believed in us, and celebrated our love. Tessa has taught me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to stand with you when life gets hard. Thank you for choosing to stand with us. After dinner there was dancing. Adrian and Tessa had their first dance as husband and wife to a song Tessa's mother used to love, a gentle melody about enduring love. Adrian wasn't a good dancer, but he tried, and Tessa loved him more for the effort. Happy? He asked, holding her close. Happier than I ever thought possible. 6 months ago I was convinced my life was over. Now I'm married to an amazing man, about to launch a community center, surrounded by people I care about. It feels like a dream. It's real. We're real. This life we're building is real. As the evening progressed, Tessa found herself talking with Jennifer. They stood at the edge of the garden watching the celebration. You've built something beautiful, Jennifer said. Not just today but everything. This relationship, this home, your new life. You took something terrible and turned it into something wonderful. I had help. I couldn't have done it alone. Neither can I. I've been going to therapy, dealing with my own issues. Trying to understand how I let myself become so blind to what Bradley was doing. It's hard work, but I'm doing it. Good. You deserve to heal too. We all do. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something? How did you forgive? How did you let go of the anger? Tessa considered the question. I'm not sure I fully have. Some days I'm still angry at what happened, what was taken from me. But I realized anger was taking up space that could be filled with better things. Love, hope, building a future. I chose those things over anger because they served me better. That's wise. It's survival. Holding on to anger would have destroyed the good things I found. I wasn't willing to let Bradley take those too. As night fell, lights strung through the garden came on, creating a magical atmosphere. Tessa and Adrian cut their cake, a simple two-tier creation decorated with fresh flowers. Everyone sang and ate and celebrated long into the evening. Later, after the last guest had left and Mrs. Brennan had gone home, Tessa and Adrian sat in the garden. The night was warm, stars visible above despite the suburban lights. What are you thinking about? Adrian asked. About how strange life is. How the worst moment of my life led to the best. About how close I came to missing all of this. You didn't miss it. You're here. We're here. That's what matters. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't taken that walk? If you'd gone home early that night instead of walking through the park? Sometimes. But then I remember that we found each other. Whether it was fate or chance or divine intervention or just incredibly good luck, we found each other when we both needed it most. That's the important part. Tessa leaned her head on his shoulder. What happens next? We've been so focused on the wedding and the center. What comes after? Life. Beautiful, ordinary, extraordinary life. We finish the community center and open it. We help families. We work in our garden. We have dinners with Mrs. Brennan. Maybe we start thinking about expanding our family someday. We just live, day by day, building something meaningful. That sounds perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the garden. Crickets chirping. A distant dog barking. The gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. Simple sounds that marked the passing of time, the continuation of life. Tessa thought about everything that had led to this moment. Bradley's betrayal. The frozen nights on the street. The moment Adrian found her. The slow rebuilding of her life. The unexpected love that had grown between them. The community center they were creating together. All of it woven into a story that made sense only in retrospect. I need to tell you something, Tessa said. Something I've been thinking about. What is it? I've decided to formally forgive Bradley. Not because he deserves it or because what he did was okay. But because carrying that weight serves no purpose anymore. He's in prison paying for his crimes. I'm here building a beautiful life. Forgiving him is the final piece of letting go. Adrian pulled her closer. If that's what you need to do, I support you. It is. My mother used to say that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger. I'm ready to be free of it. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just someone who learned that kindness, hope, and love are stronger than hate. They're what saved me. They're what made this life possible. As the night deepened, they eventually went inside. Their wedding night began not with grand gestures but with simple togetherness. With talking and laughing and planning their future. With falling asleep in each other's arms, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, but they'd face them together. In the weeks that followed, the community center opened its doors. They'd named it Diana's Place after Tessa's mother. The opening day was busy, families coming to see what services were available, people curious about the new center built with more resources than Bradley's place had ever dreamed of. Tessa stood in the main room, watching families connect with caseworkers, children playing in the activity area, volunteers organizing the food pantry. Adrian stood beside her, his hand in hers. "Your mother would be proud," he said. "She would. We're actually helping people, making a difference. And we're doing it right, with proper oversight and sustainable funding. It'll last. It will. We built it to last." Months passed. Seasons changed. The garden went through cycles of growth and rest. The community center served hundreds of families, providing food, counseling, educational programs, and hope to people who needed it most. Tessa and Adrian built routines and traditions. Holiday dinners with Mrs. Brennan. Weekend trips to explore new places. Quiet evenings in the library. A year after their wedding, Tessa discovered she was pregnant. The news brought joy mixed with nervousness. She told Adrian over breakfast, watching his face transform from surprise to pure delight. "We're having a baby? We're having a baby." He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was precious and fragile and strong all at once. "I can't believe it. We're going to be parents. Are you scared?" "Terrified. But also excited. We're going to be good at this. We know how to love. We know how to create a home. That's what matters most." They prepared for the baby together, transforming the guest room into a nursery. They painted walls a soft yellow, assembled furniture and filled shelves with books. Tessa wanted their child to grow up surrounded by stories, by hope, by the knowledge that kindness mattered. "What if we're not good enough?" Tessa worried one night as they worked on the nursery. "What if we mess this up?" "We'll make mistakes," Adrian said calmly. "Every parent does. But we'll love this child. We'll teach them to be kind and honest. We'll show them that family is about choice and commitment. And when we mess up, we'll acknowledge it and do better. That's all anyone can do." When their daughter was born on a warm summer morning, Tessa held her and cried tears of joy. They named her Diana Rose, after both grandmothers. Diana for Tessa's mother. Rose for Adrian's mother, who'd passed when he was young. Looking at her daughter's tiny face, Tessa thought about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal. The struggle. The near-death experience. The unexpected rescue. The slow building of love and trust. All of it necessary, all of it part of the path that led to holding this perfect little person. "Hello, Diana Rose," she whispered. "You're so loved. You have no idea how wanted you are, how many people are going to cherish you. Your life is going to be different from mine. You'll grow up knowing you're valued, knowing you're safe. And I promise to teach you everything my mother taught me. About kindness and hope and love being the most important things." Adrian sat beside her on the hospital bed, his arm around them both. His face showed wonder and love and a fierce protectiveness that made Tessa's heart full. "We're a family," he said softly. "A real family. One built on love and choice and commitment." "The best kind," Tessa agreed. Years later, when Diana Rose was 5 and full of questions about everything, she asked Tessa about how she and Daddy met. They were in the garden, Diana Rose helping plant tomatoes, her small hands covered in dirt. Tessa thought about how to explain the story in terms a child could understand. "Daddy and I met during a difficult time," she began. "I was going through something hard and he helped me. He was kind when kindness mattered most. And from that kindness grew friendship, and from friendship grew love. And from that love came you. So you always loved each other?" "Not always. Love grew between us like these tomato plants grow. We planted seeds by being kind to each other. We watered those seeds with care and patience. And eventually beautiful things grew." "Like me?" "Exactly like you." Diana Rose went back to digging in the soil, satisfied with the explanation. Tessa watched her daughter work, marveling at how life had unfolded. She thought about Bradley, now out of prison and reportedly living a quiet life in another state, still trying to make amends for his past. She thought about Jennifer, who'd gone back to school and was training to become a therapist. She thought about all the families Diana's Place had helped over the years, the lives touched by the work she and Adrian had built together. The community center was thriving. They'd expanded twice, adding programs and services, always keeping Diana's founding principle at the center of everything they did. Help people with genuine care. Build sustainable systems. Treat everyone with dignity and respect. Adrian came outside carrying lemonade for all of them. He'd stepped back from day-to-day operations of his company, focusing more on family and the center. His face had lost the stressed, lonely look he'd worn when Tessa first met him. Now he looked content, fulfilled, happy. "How's the planting going?" he asked. "Good. Diana Rose is a natural gardener. Like her mother." They sat together, watching their daughter work in the soil, the afternoon sun warming them all. Tessa felt profound gratitude for this life, for this family, for the second chance she'd been given that frozen winter night. The path hadn't been easy. There had been pain and betrayal and near death. But there had also been rescue and love and redemption. There had been the slow rebuilding of trust and the discovery that family could be chosen, that love could heal, that kindness still mattered even in a world that sometimes seemed cruel. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked, seeing the expression on her face. "About how grateful I am. For you, for Diana Rose, for this life. For the community we've built and the work we're doing. For all of it. I'm grateful too. Every single day." Diana Rose came over with a handful of worms, excited to show them her discovery. "Look, Mommy. Look, Daddy. They help the garden grow." "They do," Tessa confirmed. "Everything has a purpose. Even the smallest things can make beautiful things grow." As the afternoon faded into evening, they worked together in the garden, a family united by love and choice and the commitment to build something beautiful from broken pieces. The past couldn't be changed. The scars remained. But they'd created something new, something strong, something worth everything it had cost to find. This was the happy ending. Not because everything was perfect, but because they'd chosen to build joy from sorrow, to create love from loneliness, to plant gardens in the ruins and wait patiently for beautiful things to grow. They'd chosen each other, day after day, and in those choices had found something more valuable than anything money could buy. They'd found home. They'd found family. They'd found hope. And they'd found that sometimes the worst things that happen open doors to the very best things waiting to come. All you have to do is have the courage to walk through those doors when they appear, to believe that better days are possible, to trust that kindness will lead you home.